India and its semiconductor market. How has it grown over the years? Where do you think this is going?
As a country, we haven't done anything so far to have a local ecosystem to manufacture chips here. We have been importing chips.
When we look at the Make in India initiative, we see the facility coming up in Gujarat as well.
See, Gujarat alone will not be able to suffice the requirements, right?
What are the steps of, let's say, chip manufacturing in a frame?
Even if one step fails anywhere in between, the whole process is waste.
In terms of global competition, how do you see the rise of the industry?
The building blocks industry alone is a very large industry globally. Industry is going to go through the roof, and India is at the beginning of this entire curve.
Let's say something does go wrong. How large could this impact be?
I remember one instance in the past, at least in Indian context, methyl isocyanate leakage in Bhopal, one of the factories.
The government is providing lots of subsidies and funding, and even the union budget provides funding for semiconductors, so and so. Where do you think that is going?
If you go and really see how many of these schemes are really making impact into semiconductor industry, which is what we're talking today, right? Zero.
Semiconductors now power everything from your smartphones to Teslas to supercomputers, and this has now become a $1 trillion industry. But where does India stand? Are we catching up or are we falling behind? Today we have Mr. Manjunath, MD at KASFAB Group, to give us his inputs and help us understand where does India stand in this revolution. Hi sir, how are you?
Thank you.
So let's begin with understanding what are semiconductors.
So these are very critical components for any communication, display, interface, anything that you see in today's life. The two gadgets communicating, or two countries communicating, or two time zones communicating, everything is happening through the semiconductors, right? So hence they are very, very integral part of our life. And unfortunately, India is not yet into semiconductor manufacturing until this date, while a lot of efforts are happening on this area.
So essentially semiconductors are anything that go into from our phones to our laptops. These are just the basic chips that build up everything.
Anything and everything that you talk about it, right from your daily life, when you get up in the morning, people are today even getting used to using the toothbrushes, which are driven by small motors, which are controlled by semiconductor chips. So starting from there until you sleep, you have every other step that you take, there's an interface with the semiconductor chips.
So in terms of India and its semiconductor market, how has it grown over the years? Where is it now? And in terms of future growth, where do you think this is going?
Okay, so as a world, if you see, semiconductors are far advanced in most of the Western countries, and these are the basic chips, right? And there's a basic blocks for display, for phones or any gadgets, laptops, you name any electronic device. These are the building blocks. So, but the building blocks industry alone is a very large industry globally. So we are currently about 700 billion plus, close to 800 billion plus dollar as the overall market size, and which is expected to be about 1 trillion by 2030. So all that is good in terms of numbers, but then the consumption of these things are happening at a very, very fast pace in multiple areas. So apart from the basic devices, it also has huge utility in securing the nation and other aspects of country's interest. And as a country, we haven't done anything so far to have a local ecosystem to manufacture chips here. We have been importing chips. So by so many reports that we see on a daily basis, we would be hitting about 100 plus billion by 2030 in terms of imports of chips if we don't manufacture them in India. But at the same time, you're not going to be there to make everything by ourselves. We will still be dependent on many other countries where the chips are being made. Yet, we can reduce the dependence to some extent by having the local manufacturing. So, given that as a focus area, what our government is doing today to set up a local fabs is definitely one good step. And that's a very, very basic step and first step. But a lot more to do and a lot more to come.
And when we look at the Make in India initiative, we see the facility coming up in Gujarat as well. Where do you think that would take India in the semiconductor race across the world?
See, Gujarat alone will not be able to suffice the requirements, right? But it has to start somewhere. You can't start, just with when you have $1 in hand, you can't just distribute because of a democratic approach to every other state and start doing it. We'll never reach the next milestone. It's a good strategy to focus on Gujarat today. At least there's one place where the entire energy can be focused on to get that industry up. Once it is done, I'm sure there are other states which are all ready to take that opportunity, and we would need that.
So when we talk about other states, there has, in terms of semiconductor growth, especially during the last year, there has been a lot of competition between states, and there's been a lot of budget allocations from per state into building semiconductors. Where do you think, in terms of government involvement and funding, how is that taking the semiconductor revolution?
See, any investor, rather any company which wants to invest into semiconductor manufacturing, it could be a fundamental block like chip manufacturing, or the systems, or it could be a facility like ATMP, or it could be a third-party facility like OSAT. Any of these things can come anywhere in the country. But all it depends is where is the ecosystem for them, right? You cannot go and set up a semiconductor chip making in one location where all of the ecosystem players are somewhere else, right? So today it's all happening in Gujarat, and everybody is going towards Gujarat. But there is very, very vital element in this ecosystem, that is a learned or knowledgeable manpower, right? You can't get everything from one place. That's impossible. So naturally, there are places like Karnataka or Telangana or Andhra Pradesh or Tamil Nadu or Maharashtra, for that matter, are definitely one of the good options for people to look at it because of the human capital. Without human capital, whatever you invest on infrastructure is of no use.
So you believe, in terms of this more than state competition, it should be collective building for India?
To begin with, yes. To begin with, yes. But eventually there has to be competition, and let everybody, be in the fair game of, attracting the best talent, best investments, best technology. That is bound to happen.
So let's get a bit into understanding what a chip is, and the process of building a chip. What are these machines that are used to building a chip? What are the steps of, let's say, chip manufacturing in a frame?
See, chip manufacturing is a very, very advanced technology, and I don't think I would really be able to do justice to explain the entire process. While just to give you a gist of it, there are 300 plus steps. And the trick of this whole game is, even if one step fails anywhere in between, the whole process is waste, right? So it's so sensitive in terms of the every step. So we can't say, okay, I have passed 200 steps, I have achieved 66%, and the next step, if you fail, the entire 200 steps is all waste, right? So it's a very sensitive process at each stage. So given that when it goes to the 300 steps, it is not that you have just one machine to make all the 300 steps, plus to make a chip. There are multiple equipments are used to enable the chip manufacturing. That's why you see about, huge industry of even the equipment manufacturing, which goes into chip making, right? So that itself is a $125 billion annual revenue for all the equipment makers as per 2024 SEMI report, right? So that's a very large industry. And then unless these companies are ready to supply such advanced equipment, Intel's, TSMC's, Samsung's of the world will not be able to produce those chips.
So when we look at the Intels and Samsungs of the world, in terms of global competition, how do you see the rise of the industry in the future? Like, where do you see this going?
See, this industry has not a straightforward, path. It is not purely an economical, angle. It also has a lot of security angle and geopolitical angle. So everybody wants to secure themselves, better than others, so they can, kind of manage the threats that could come from others, right? And we can't expect the world to become everybody peace-loving, right? Every nation peace-loving. So we do have our own challenges across our boundaries. So given that everybody wants to secure their nation first, so hence semiconductors are one of the key components to secure the nation's security. So given that, growth will definitely be at a very fast pace, because we do something, somebody else will do something better than that to make it, secure themselves better and, overpower us, right? And this game of overpowering each other will create a rush towards developing new semiconductors and
It's a
new
race at this
processes.
point.
It's a race, right? So industry is going to go through the roof, and India is at the beginning of this entire curve. So there's a huge opportunity for us to really set up the ecosystem and manufacturing of semiconductor chips in India.
Yeah. So looking at India, especially the past year, India Semiconductor Mission has been all in the talks. Like, in a quick run through, what exactly is India Semiconductor Mission?
I think government thought it will not be easy for them to really meet potential companies, technology companies, investors to really convince them about the opportunity in India. So it would have been very difficult for government to wear that CEO angle of convincing investors, right? So they said, okay, why don't we create some body like this, which is kind of not exactly a government body, but still
like niche focused on a particular area.
Still well supported by the government, and they are kind of going around the world talking to all technology players and convincing them about why they should come to India, and also understanding that what are they looking forward to, and trying to make that happen in India by talking to different stakeholders within the government, outside the government. So there are multiple roles that they are trying to handle, and for that you need a team which is more dedicated, and it cannot be done by the ministry or a PMO by itself, right? So hence they have formed up this kind of a body called ISM, which I think so far they have done a good job. And at the same time, I think there is an area which they should also be really looking at seriously, is about how the ecosystem players in India can come up into this race, right? So it's good that you could get some, really good investment companies to come and set up, but where are the ecosystem players who can supply the materials, components, engineering services, which will be critical for semiconductor manufacturing? So that is an area which is kind of very, very urgent need today.
That's true. What are these other challenges that you see coming up in terms of India's growth towards the semiconductor industry, like apart from ecosystem building and creating that understanding of getting such materials and so on? So what are these other challenges that come up?
Every country would like to protect their own IP, right? And naturally, technology won't be available free, right? Let's say today we are getting 28 nanometer node technology from power chip from Taiwan as part of the Tata Electronics dual era. There is still a long way to go. If we have to really compete with other developed countries like US or South Korea, Taiwan, or Europe or Japan for that matter, we have to go down the lane of building the smaller nodes. People are already at less than 2 nanometers. They're talking about 1.8 angstroms, right? So given that, that's an area which post our initial phase of setting up chip manufacturing, we need to have that pipeline ready. And I'm not sure that Indian R&D is yet there working towards the next decade's requirement. And you can't dig the well when you're thirsty. So to what extent we are really working towards the next generation chips? That's a big question. So that's where the big challenge as well.
So people have been talking, there have been discussions on 3D making within the chips itself, stacking vertical, horizontal, making the chip smaller, making it more efficient. Where do you think in terms of helping these chips last longer, nanotech, where do you think it will take a lot of time for India to?
The reference is all about nature, right? Whatever we are doing, we are only trying to mimic at the very, very macro level of nature. So there's a lot more to mimic. And every day somebody mimics something better than what was yesterday, right? So I think it's a bottomless pit.
True. So as a company yourself, KAS Group, how are you playing part in India's semiconductor revolution?
Semiconductor industry globally is very large. And India is also going to be very large, right? And we are one of these, players in that particular ecosystem, right? It's not that we are the ones which are going to make a difference to the ecosystem, but unless we have players like us, maybe 100, 200 of our kind of companies, this ecosystem cannot support the large players like Tata Electronics or, for example, CG Power, or for that matter, Micron, any of these people who are coming into the country. So we have a big ambition to really become one of the key stakeholders of many such players. I'm not saying we are the only ones, so there'll be many such players, but we would definitely like to be one of the players in that market. And we have that advantage of kind of doing better in this because we have been in this industry for the last 15 plus years. So we have a good learning path so far, and that would really help us to grow and do better. And the areas that we are very, very comfortable to grow further is to support advanced manufacturing facilities, where they would need a lot of all the special gases, chemicals, clean rooms, and those things. That's one of our verticals of business. And second is also to equipment to support this advanced tech manufacturing facility. It could be a gas cabinets, chemical delivery systems, centralized chemical systems, scrubbers, abatement tools, all those things. And the new one that we have kind of ventured into is about contract manufacturing of equipments for semiconductor equipment makers, right? So we are not the ones who are IP holders. Our customers are the IP holders here. So that's where we would be making equipment as per their IP, as per their design, and supply to them, and they would be possibly giving it to Intels and Samsungs of the world.
So when you talk about these customers of yours, can you give us a bit of insight into
so they are the key players in this market, and I think they're all part of the top 10 equipment makers in the world. And they collectively have at least about $50 billion as a market revenue, right? And we are a drop in the ocean. So we're just doing small things at this point of time to support them in when they start building new tools, or they want some sub-assemblies, or they also are looking at building entire tool, which is of course a legacy version, may not be the current version tools, because everybody wants to protect their IP, right? So when they are transferring the know-how IP to us, it's also our responsibility to guard that well, right? So we have kind of done that homework to see how we can guard the customer's IP well, unlike what happens outside India and some of those countries. I don't want to name them, but yes, that's a challenge for a lot of our customers. So hence we have taken those initiatives to secure the IP for our customers and be the player to collaborate and complement their work and build tools for them. So we are purely into contract manufacturing of building such advanced tools for our customers.
So could you give us a quick run through as to the new facility that is launched and what are you exactly doing here?
Okay, so when I used to go and look at all these facilities outside India, so I used to wonder why there are so many companies in this space. So I kind of got this idea that a lot of these equipment makers don't make everything themselves. They keep the new version of tools with themselves, and they work on R&D part of the tools, look at the new developments, while all the legacy tools, they were typically get it contract manufactured. So when I went around US, especially in some of these places like Texas and Arizona and California, and then in places in South Korea, and within South Korea, even going down all the way to Busan and Gyeonggi, and then in Malaysia and Penang, and some parts in China and Japan, there are a lot of these companies which are not the equipment makers by themselves, but they are the contract manufacturers for all this top 10 of the world. So that's a huge business by itself, which runs into $25 billion annual revenue for them. So we saw that as a one model where we could set up such facility in India and start engaging with global companies to build equipments in India for them, right? So naturally, it has to be something which comparable to global standards. We can't build an infrastructure facility, something which we think is right, and expect customers to really engage with us. So we have to make it enticing for them, right? And so we kind of map this, what is available outside the country, and a similar establishment has been set up here now. So we are proud to say that we are nothing short of any of such facilities outside India. Only comparison that could go different is about the scale, right? So we could be X, while a large contract manufacturer outside India could be 10X. But that's not too far for us. The moment our customers say, look, we are here, we want to start here, we are beginning the journey at this point of time, how fast can you build, let's say 3X or a 5X or a 10X of this infrastructure? Just to give you some metrics, this infrastructure was set up in 3.5 months' time.
Yeah. Yeah.
While some of our potential customers, they were here in October last year to see this, and they just saw the shell. And in January, when they saw this facility fully functional, they were really, surprised, and they couldn't believe it unless they came and saw it personally. So hence, we are capable of building, because our first company, the UHP Technologies, is into project engineering and project management capability. So we are using best of our own internal talent to build such facilities to our customers. Why not for our own self? So we can build 10x of this in no time. That's not a challenge.
So who are these specific customers that who came for the launch and who participated, and who may potentially end up being future collaborations with the facility?
A lot of companies came for this inauguration. I think I must thank them for having come and really wished us all the good luck for this new journey. It's not an easy journey, and it's going to be a very difficult journey. We recognize that. And they gave us a lot of support and advice. So people from Applied Materials, people from Lam Research, people from Tokyo Electronics, people from Yield Engineering System, and even our global suppliers like Gemu from Germany, and people from, I would call, Valex USA, and we had people from Horeba, Japan, and a lot of Rochtling from Germany, and Simona. There a lot of companies, George Fisher. There are a lot of global companies who are going to be part of this ecosystem in India. They were all here to look at, okay, what is that we have done differently, and how come this is not there before and suddenly it's come into existence.
Yeah. So when we look at like manufacturing of anything per se, safety is one issue that's always of major concern. So even semiconductor manufacturing, safety is always going to be an issue. And like you do equipment manufacturing, which will potentially go up in semiconductor facilities. So how important of a metric for you is manufacturing safety, and how do you mitigate that?
Okay. There is no two ways about it. Okay. Anything which we work in the advanced tech manufacturing facilities, it could be semiconductors, it could be solar, it could be optical fiber, it could be biopharma, it could be batteries for EV vehicles. Any of these advanced tech manufacturing, there are a lot of these hazardous materials being used, right? When I say hazardous materials, for a common man, it will be very difficult to understand. Without those toxic materials, you can't have this phone made, right? And what is the level of hazardous, right? As small as 0.2 ppm of a divodane or a phosphine or a arsine kind of molecules can be fatal for a human being when they're exposed for 15 minutes in a closed room, right? So given that, there is no room for a failure, especially with respect to safety. And hence, it is not a one level of safety that we build in any equipment which uses this such kind of hazardous materials. There are at least 3 or 4 levels of safety. And Semi Standards is one such reference which talks about safety in any of these equipment that is built, either the equipment makers or facilities that we build to support manufacturing of chips. Its safety becomes a predominant, or rather the precondition for any of these companies to survive, right? So whatever that we do, we have to follow those Bible of ensuring the safety is taken care. There's no compromise, and it comes with its own tests and validation tools, and that goes to almost about 5 levels of validation to ensure that every aspect of safety is taken care in building this equipment, either for facilities or for semiconductor chip making. So this is paramount. There's no two ways about it.
So if let's say something does go wrong, how large could this impact be?
See, I remember one incident in the past, at least in Indian context, methyl isocyanide leakage in Bhopal in one of the factories, and that really kind of ate away a lot of human population and also left a lot of perils for generations to come. It is not about just one. So there are even more dangerous materials that are used in semiconductor, but the situation has changed so much. The engineering progress has improved so much. The safety elements, or rather the measurement capability has improved so much. Today, most of these processes and equipments are inbuilt with lot of such gadgets to detect an early failure. So we don't have to really wait for a major failure to happen. So, but in the worst scenario, let's say there is a terrorist attack. That's something which
That's
nobody can
yeah.
protect that unless something else. That's not in your own control of as a manufacturing
As a
company.
manufacturing.
So that can lead to a devastating effect for sure. But I'm sure even that there are a lot of ways to protect, and
Right.
people can, as we say that an early warning of a failure.
Yeah.
We also have intelligence inputs to say there could be a
Right.
terrorist
There
attack.
could
So
be.
I'm sure
Yeah.
country
So
would
always
be
mitigation beforehand.
mitigation plans would be there to
Yeah.
address those things as well.
Right. So, moving a bit to understand challenges within manufacturing facilities, there has been a lot of, let's say, challenges related to the workforce, the people who are working. There have been instances in the past in facilities in and around Karnataka or Chennai where workers have gone on strikes and things related to that. How do you plan ahead for that? How do you make your workers stay? What is the incentives that maybe you're providing?
See, when you look at the employees, right, it's a two-way, right? Do employee feel empowered in the work that they do? Do they think they are grown in this place of, in the workplace, right, over the period of time? Are you giving them enough opportunities for them to upskill, learn and
Right.
add value into the company? Once that environment is prevailing, you will see most of these, activities of, strikes and things like that are kind of diminished, right? It can be mitigated very easily. And in this process, it's a mutual benefit as well. The more and more you provide such environment for employees to grow, right? The company grows. When the company grows, it's a symbiotic relationship,
Yeah.
right? You grow, employees grow. When the employees add value, the company grows. It's always going to be symbiotic, right? So hence, we have a very, very clear expectations from everybody in the company where they have to add skill every year. Unlike of IT companies where it's like new technology, new programs, new coding comes every other year, so they had to learn.
Yeah.
Here, this is not new. Within the available skills in this industry, if I know 10 and there are still 20 more to learn, I need to pick up one every year and add that as part of my ability. So we are literally measuring that in every employee. So for us, it becomes a very, very symbiotic. So that gives them a new room to play, a new level to play, and new contribution that they can make, which is how our company has grown so far.
So you have places where you upskill your employees and they go through a training process before they actually start working at the facility.
Yeah, for the new employees, yes, because the skills that we need for our business is not available in the market, right? We can't just go and hire, poach people from other companies and do it. That's not our choice. The only way is to take the fresh candidates, and it has actually worked wonders for us because when they come fresh, we can really educate them, kind of fine tune them in the way that we want them to contribute, right? So it becomes easier as compared to somebody from outside.
Right. Let's say we talk a bit about the employees within your facility itself. The facility is not located within the city. So in terms of finding the employees who come to work here, there probably might have been a bit of challenges to help, recruit people who live around here. In terms of that, like, what is the transportation facility? How do people get here? Do you provide any sort of, benefits from the company side?
See, this is a large industrial area, so it's not that we are in very remote place, right? But certainly a bit away from a happening place like a Bangalore city, right? But we have something very close by, which is Yelahanka, which is a well-established township by itself. So that is one definitely an advantage for us to find good people to stay there. At the same time, a lot of nearby places. We are not looking at only PhDs and masters in engineering to work with us, right? We also need a large number of people who are skilled people who have done possibly an ITI or a 12th or a science graduates or a diploma or engineers, right? So there are a lot of such resources available locally as well for that. So we are taking them, we are training them, and they're very happy. And we have been here since 2015 in this particular ecosystem of Doddaballapur, and we are able to find talent who we are able to really upskill them and then make them contribute into our company's growth.
Right. So when we look at the equipment that you're manufacturing, nowadays a lot of manufacturing facilities have equipment that's AI integrated, or that has robotics involved in it, synthetic data, training on simulations. So in those along those lines, what are the kind of equipment that you're manufacturing here? How much of AI is involved in the process?
Okay. AI has not come into our kind of equipment when it goes to facilities, right? For delivering gases, chemicals, and those things. But what we have done is we have done a remote integration of our tools, our equipment, what goes into our customers' manufacturing facilities, which becomes easy for us to support them on a 24/7, right?
Okay.
So that way we are able to be available for customers through a remote monitoring and remote ports available for us to communicate to our equipments remotely from our factory.
Right.
So that is available. But on the process equipment, semiconductor chip making equipment, the AI has already made its way, right? It's already there, right? And in fact, now recently I had an opportunity to meet and talk to one company from Germany who have developed an AI-based tool to understand the data mining and come up with its own simulation, what could be a better configuration of process parameters to improve the next batch of production, right? Okay. So we are partnering with such kind of companies to see how we can go and offer that tool along with our equipments or indirectly or directly to the customers for other equipments as well, for other tools as well. So we are there, but we haven't signed up any contract yet with our customers, but we are talking to some of the potential customers on that.
Yeah. So you think AI as a technology in the future could be implemented greatly into maybe your manufacturing processes or the equipment that you are manufacturing
Both
itself?
of them, yeah. Both of them.
And what about robotics, if you look at it? Because a lot of equipment that's manufactured, that's making the semiconductor is...
Robotics is very much part of any semiconductor equipment. Today, if you go into any clean room operations, you don't have hundreds of people operating these processes because most of the operations are done by the robotics by themselves. Very, minimal intervention by the human. So hence, any equipment that is built today, they're all with robotics.
Yeah, so in terms of the equipment that you're manufacturing, if you look at the cost aspect a bit, like what materials you're using, how are you making it cost efficient for, going further into the future, and, what kind of investments are you attracting in those terms?
See, whatever we make, we still have to use some of the best components while building our equipment, right? So it's not that, we just build equipment using what is available in India.
Right.
But what is compatible for making such equipment is what we can use. So that's an ecosystem which is well developed in Southeast Asia, all the way to Taiwan, China, Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea, and all these countries. And we need to emulate that model in India if we have to make more of indigenous semiconductor equipment. Today, we are dependent certainly from some of those components to come from these countries. But as they did it, I think it's easy for us to also do that. And it all needs some scale of the industry. And it will take some time for that.
So if let's say you talked about you're hiring so much talent and you're, getting these engineers and upskilling them for the kind of requirements that you have. If you had to talk to these engineers face to face, what are some advice that you would give to them, for them to make themselves ready for such kind of jobs?
So one is you got to really look at an area of interest, right? Once you identify the area of interest, irrespective of what it offers you today, you stay put in that area at least for 10 years. If you don't have that kind of a perseverance, you would be just job hopping and that will not take you anywhere. And the day is not too far when India also will come to some plateau of its economical growth, right? Like what we see today in China or other countries, right? At that time, your jack of all will not fetch you a job. So you got to be master in something, and that you can't acquire by job hopping. You got to stay put in a particular company or a particular area of work that which you think your heart lies there, right? And unfortunately, that is not happening. So hence, I think the current generation of engineers or any other graduates really have to take this very seriously.
So this is sort of like looking into where we say India is the talent hub for everything, but the drawback is when there's talent, but there's not talent skilled enough
Yeah.
for specific kinds of jobs.
And it also has a big role to be played by the education industry, I would call it. They're no more not for profit, they are really for profit industry.
Right.
So the way they really upskill their faculty, that's one big area. I find it difficult for students to understand what's happening in the industry because the faculty themselves are
Right.
not aware what's happening in the industry. So very few of them really are really in line with what's happening outside.
Yeah.
So unless you have faculty who are in tune with what's happening outside, how would you really inspire the students?
Yeah.
How would you guide them to pick up an area of interest and stay put in that area?
That's true. I think just the industry itself and government plays a big role in instigating, this coming up revolution. So, as in, like, if you look at government itself, like, what do you think in terms of what they're providing? Because the government's providing lots of subsidies and like funding, and even the union budget provides funding for like semiconductors, so and so. Where do you think that is going?
See, government is in a very tricky situation all the time. It's not about this government, any other government for that matter, right? Whichever party comes to power, they're always in a tricky situation.
Right.
One is they have to take care of the socialistic requirements and compulsions because of politics. And other is the real economical compulsions of the country, right? So how well you balance these two,
Yeah.
that makes the government survive for longer period. And if you're not there for longer period, you cannot really implement certain strategic decisions and follow through and see the outcome of the policies. So far I see, I think at least a lot of people have been talking outside India. When I travel and meet people, I see a lot of people are very, very positive about the policies that government is promoting, especially the PLI schemes. That's certainly getting us some of the good investments and good companies to come into, large companies to come into country. But all these companies, for them to sustain and grow, they need a good ecosystem. So that's why I keep harping about this point. The government needs to do a lot more to develop this ecosystem. Yes, I see a point where government is coming from, look, we can't do everything all the time. It's definitely not easy. But let's say even the recent announcement in the budget, whatever that, the CGTME scheme, the increase in the limit of, extending the collateral-free loans and all those is, they're all at a policy level, right? But if you go and really see how many of these schemes are really making an impact into semiconductor industry, which is what we're talking today, right? Zero. They might be making impact into other conventional industries because banks are very much comfortable understanding those industries, and so they will make sure they pick right MSME player to give those kind of loans. While semiconductor industry, the banks don't understand, right? It's a new age industry. So given that kind of a understanding, we got to look at very differently. What's a different way, right? I always tell this one simple philosophy. We have a lot of engineering hubs in the country. Peenya in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Coimbatore, Pune, maybe Rajkot, Faridabad, and a few other such, centers of engineering excellence. They have done very good in their respective domains. It could be automobile to any other areas. Why can't we look at or spot such 200 such passionate entrepreneurs in these 200, places, the excellence, the engineering excellence of hubs in the country, right? Get these 200 such passionate entrepreneurs, take them to all these developed countries on a short-term project for 3 months, if not more, right? And the 3 months of their exposure to the developed, hubs like, South Korea, Japan, Germany, US, and wherever it is, wherever India has some kind of an, bilateral treaties, right? Let them work in those economies, in those ecosystems. Let them come back. And let's say out of 200, 100 do not want to pursue further for whatever reasons, right? We don't have a control on everybody's, passions, right? Even if you find 100 such passionate entrepreneurs and they come up with a business plan that what they can do adjacent to what they're doing today, at the same time, what they can do something new, right? Not necessarily to do only adjacent to what you're doing. You can come up with a new brilliant idea, which they have been not doing so far. So given these two areas, they can come up with a business plan, and government can create a different window of funding for such kind of a companies,
Right.
and promote those, right? Now, let's say each of them at least do about a $50 million business in next 3 years. We are creating a seed for $5 billion ecosystem among the players who are going to support the semiconductor industry growth.
Right.
So that's something which I think
It's going to bring in a lot of inputs from
exactly
the top players in the
and
industry.
that will really kind of catalyze this entire ecosystem. I would say that will be big strength for the ecosystem.
So I think lastly, I wanted to also understand in terms of India's Make in India mission, and we're talking so much about Atmanirbharta and getting into that entire thing, and especially since like past few months that has been a major talk. Where do you think in terms of semiconductor manufacturing we stand? Because we also talking about making India's first completely made in India chip in Gujarat, and how real Make in India that is. If we're getting like raw materials from outside, or are we getting everything within India?
See, for all this chip making at this point of time, the equipments are all coming from outside India. So there's no doubts about it, right? But it is made in Indian soil, using Indian talent, right? And using some of the services coming from India, right? And that's the first step. You cannot expect an ideal situation of like, we build tools, we build raw materials for that, everything from India, and that's not going to happen. I don't think in that sense any country in the world exists in that situation, right? So hence we got to be more practical about when I say make in India or made in India. It's all about doing it here with a significant value add, right? And that is what I believe what's going to happen very soon by when the government says it's make in India and made in India chips.
Right. So I think, in terms of understanding the industry, we've got a pretty good understanding discussing this. Are there any closing remarks you would like to put forth in terms of what your company is doing, or where do you think this, is going ahead in terms of the future?
See, at this point of time, we are the one of those few companies to really enter the space of building tools under maybe contract manufacturing or even equipment for our own facilities to handle hazardous materials. But going forward, the industry is going to become so big. We need many more companies like KAST Group, right? And that's where I believe the new entrepreneurs or other industries to look at it and see this as a big opportunity. And it's not going to happen like, you just put in money and get some results next moment. It's not going to be a huge learning path as well.
Right.
So you need to have that patience and perseverance to pursue this dream of, being part of the ecosystem.
Right.
And I would be really happy to see many more companies similar to KAST Group really come into this, arena.
Especially when you will look at semiconductors, I want to understand what does one has to study, what kind of experience do they need to have to, actually get into this industry as a newcomer.
See, semiconductor industry is not about just one field of engineering or science, right? People with a chemistry background, people with a mathematics background, people with a physics background, I'm talking about pure sciences, right? They have a role to play, right? Similarly, in the engineering side, there are different streams of engineering are used. People who are into mechanical engineering, they all are really, really sought after for design of equipments.
Right.
And people with experience in, let's say, electronics or education in electronics, they would know how this entire chip is made and then what it goes into while making a chip. So they would be required for assembly of all kinds of semiconductor chips. And people who are into chemical engineering or a metallurgy or some material science, they are the ones who are really going to run this semiconductor equipment to make the chips. So you see, and even for example, it's building a semiconductor fab. You need strong civil engineers who understand how vibration has got so much of impact on semiconductor chip making equipments.
Right.
So even from a civil engineer to all the way to computer science to really code these chips, and from a pure sciences background to do analytics into all kinds of chip performance.
Right.
I don't see there's any branch or any field which is not going to be used in semiconductors. So even let's say if somebody who's into literature and writing skills, if they like to work in semiconductor industry, if they have passion to pick up some nuances of this industry, they can really write very good literature and what do you call some study material for people to learn about semiconductor. And all this has to go to the very, very basic level of education system. It's not going to be done at the engineering or graduation levels. This has to be done
instilled from
at
the
the
beginning.
fundamental schooling, like right from the grade 5, 6, 7. That's where we have to really go in and teach.
Yeah, I think in
next
that
generation.
sense, there's like information about a lot of industries that as children who are studying in such young grades have no idea about.
Yeah.
Even like when you look at space, quantum, they just don't know what niche exists out there. So yeah, there could definitely be improvement in that. Thank you. Thank you for sitting with us today. This has been a really good chat and an immense pleasure to sit with you and discuss the India semiconductor industry.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.